will say Sentimental Philosopher, Take 2, Monday, April 25th. And I'll take it out of fade after 5.
As their love grows older, their hearts just grow colder. It looks like it's over for them. But honey, I love you so much.
You grew up in a very small town. Life there was incredibly insulated for you. Life there was incredibly small, limiting life. And you railed against that. It wasn't what you wanted. It was too small. It was too little for you. You wanted to improve your life. This occurred very early for you. It seemed as if your environment did not provide enough stimulation for your mind. And this was a problem. This was something you had to work on. You worked on it every day. You worked on it without realizing the kind of work you were doing. And you discovered things on your own. You became, in a way, your own best friend. This was very difficult for you. This was very isolating for you. The biggest thing in your little town was sports. You weren't interested in that. You weren't interested in that kind of activity, that kind of interaction with people. And so you drifted on your own for a while. You didn't know what you were going to do. You discovered books. Books and reading became incredibly important to you in this period in your life. And you started to read. You read and you read and you read book after book at a very early age. There was a certain spark in you, very private, very insular, but it was there and you could tell it. You started to learn things on your own. You started to make connections that hadn't been made for you by people around you. And this was very isolating. This was very hard for you. You had few friends, but you were lucky. You were very lucky. The good Lord must have been looking out for you, because he gave you two of the best people as parents, as your mom and dad. Your friends, no matter what happened, no matter what was going on with you. They didn't understand you. They didn't know what it was all about, but they knew that you needed their help, and they gave that to you. They gave you their love. They gave you their unconditional support. And this was very important to you. This got you through some of the times that may have been difficult for you, that may have made things unpleasant, frightening. The biggest thing in your little town was sports. And you could give two hoots about the sporting life. You didn't care for that. It wasn't what was important for you. And this was difficult. This was incredibly hard. It didn't get any easier for you in high school. At that time, people's terms of fulfillment were not your terms of fulfillment at all. It wasn't what you wanted to do. It wasn't what you were interested in. And this became hard. This became very difficult. You were a very sad young man. You were a very sad teenager. And this reflected in your life. And then you discovered romance. The egg shell was starting to crack. But this was of no help to you. This didn't satisfy your particular needs. You found yourself imagining what people would be like more than finding out what people were like. You imagined the kinds of interactions you would have with them that you wanted to have. You would imagine what you would say to them and what they would say back to you. And this became a theatrical kind of event in your mind. You would rehearse entire conversations with people. Later on in your life, you decided you had to become broader. Other people in your town were going through high school. They were having sweethearts. They were having relationships that you saw as shallow, superficial, as if all the parties involved didn't know what was going on between them, yet you knew somehow. You felt you knew them and what they were about and what they were hiding. And you went off. You left your little town. You found life in a larger town. You went to the university and you tried to study. You tried to learn. You felt you knew what was going on. You were already educated. You already knew what was going on. Your teachers looked at you, struggling with concepts you felt you knew all about. They felt as if you wanted to reinvent things they could tell you much more about. You wanted to reinvent the academic wheel in their minds. Your performance was uneven. You needed time off from school. You asked your parents. They let you have that. They let you have that time off. Anything that you needed, they tried to provide for you. And this was very difficult. Times were tough for your parents. They worked very hard for the little money they got. Your father, he sold cars, he sold trucks. He would talk to people for hours on end about purchasing cars or trucks. But they wouldn't buy them. They didn't want them. You started noticing little changes around you. Little changes that were indicative of a faltering economy. Other people were optimistic, but not you. You knew things were taking a turn for the worse. Small cars. You started noticing all the small cars in your little town. And then you turned to drugs. It seemed to satisfy a need for stimulation that wasn't available at the time. It provided one level of reality, but it didn't answer every level of reality. And the problems of the outside world you began to see as unsolvable. And this was difficult for you. This was not easy. Your few friends didn't understand you. They didn't know what you wanted from them. And you didn't know yourself. Time went by. You began to drift into things. You found the girl. You got married. It seemed like the thing to do at the time. That's what it was. It seemed like the thing to do at the time. There were children. A few years went by. It was a dissatisfying interaction. You felt you needed a way out. You didn't know what it was. You tried for more education. Perhaps that would solve the problem. The situation seemed to fester for you. There was no sense of forward momentum. There was no sense of forward movement for you. Every day began to succeed another, and you began to feel as if whatever you could do somehow was enough. Whatever you could do in any capacity somehow was enough. Days began to succeed themselves, and this was very satisfying to you. In a way, you became your own prophecy of staticness, of staidness. In a way, you became your own prophecy of continued life with nothing ever changing. You began to lose hope. It was hard. It was very difficult. You found that life didn't have any meaning for you. You removed yourself from the externals of your own life. Days went by, succeeded by more days. Nothing was happening. Nothing was changing for you. The important things you had thought of as a child suddenly seemed insignificant to the world around you. There was no place for you in society as you knew it. And this was incredibly hard. This was incredibly difficult. You grew up in a very small town.